So what does cause damage to the aura? Well, for the most part, it's emotional upset, which can tear it or fray it or make it a bit weak. So emotional upset, stress, mental overload, spiritual overload. So, for example, if you had an emotional breakup, you might expect to see a tear over the heart. It's like there's just too much emotion, you know. Same applies exams. Quite often exam stress will be, I've got to think about communicating so clearly and it's just too much for the throat chakra, so you might see damage there. Substance abuse can definitely cause problems. Too much drinking, drugs, because they can make you feel like you're out of your head, and so you feel like the auric body's actually displaced and you feel like you're all kind of floaty. I also have experienced terror and shock making you like jump almost out of your etheric bodies. That can definitely cause problems. And while we're talking about damage, we're talking about, as I say, tears, frays, thinning of the vitality, but also we can think about how it changes the shape. So sometimes, so you would hope that you've got like perfect ovals, but that's not always the case. Sometimes they can push down onto each other, and of course if they're pushing down, then there's just not enough room for the information, not enough room for the vitality. And so what we'll learn to do is to dowse, okay, what's the shape of the aura? Is the ample distance between the layers? So all of those would be counted as damage, even though displacement isn't really damage, if you like, but I would consider that to be unhealthy as opposed to healthy aura. There are certain sort of drivers that can cause problems: addiction, obsession, where it's almost like the aura has no chance to switch off. You know, it's just continual, and it's driving. Those can definitely cause damage to the aura. And what happens is, because they never get chance to go to sleep, not that the aura goes to sleep, but as a metaphor, because it has no chance to go to sleep, it just gets weaker and more and more depleted, because there's just no chance for anything to revitalize it. It's just always obsessing over that addiction, over that person, over what have you. Over time, that can really cause a lower vibration. So as an auric, I call them layers, Mum calls them etheric bodies, it's the same thing, so I say, because I can like see them as layers. As the layer becomes more depleted, of course it can more easily be preyed upon. And depending on what kind of person you are, you might relate to this more or less. Because I'm quite an empathic person, what I have to be very careful is that people who just like to drain my energy don't latch onto me. So because I'm like somebody who can quite happily listen to somebody's troubles for hours upon hours and hours and hours, mainly because the menopause means I completely forget what I've said. But as that's fine if you've got a robust aura, if the etheric bodies are strong enough to take it. If they're in a weakened state, what you'll have is people acting as auric parasites and kind of like running their life force off your life force. And that sounds terribly complex, but you'd be amazed how often it happens. And of course that means that a low field gets weaker. And when we're looking at really low fields, you might see, as I said, auric parasites, but you might also see like auric ulcers, and kind of they've gone really difficult to heal. You know, they just keep suppurating and going rubbish again. So yeah, that's damage to the aura.